The morning sun cast long shadows across the mining camp on Kepler 442b when the first alien ship appeared in the sky. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee outside the main building when he saw the dark shape moving across the orange horizon. At first, he thought it might be a supply ship from Earth, but something felt wrong. The ship was too big and moved too quietly. Jake called out to the other workers, "Everyone inside now." His voice carried across the camp, and people started moving toward the buildings. But it was already too late. More ships appeared, dozens of them, dropping from the clouds like black rain. They were sleek and strange, nothing like the bulky human vessels that brought supplies every few months. These ships hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. Dr. Lisa Park ran from the science lab, her equipment still in her hands. She had been studying rock samples when the alarm sounded. Now she watched the alien fleet with growing fear. There were at least 30 ships, each one larger than their entire mining facility. "What do they want?" asked Ryan Cole, the young engineer who had arrived just 6 months ago. He was barely 25, fresh from Earth, and had never seen anything like this. His hands shook as he watched the ships land around their camp in perfect formation. The aliens that emerged from the ships were tall and thin, with hard shells that looked like crystal. They moved on 6 legs, and their heads turned in ways that hurt to watch. Each one carried weapons that glowed with blue light. They surrounded the human camp within minutes. Jake tried to reach the communication center, but an alien stepped in front of him. The creature was 8 feet tall, its crystal shell reflecting the morning light. When it spoke, the words came from a small device on its chest. "You will not move," the alien said. Its voice was cold and flat, like a machine talking. "You will gather with the others." More aliens appeared, herding the humans toward the center of the camp. Jake counted quickly. There were 312 people in the colony, including families and children. All of them were now prisoners. The alien leader was larger than the others, with deeper colors in its crystal shell. It stood on a raised platform and looked down at the gathered humans. When it spoke, its voice carried across the camp through speakers the other aliens had set up. "I am War Prime Kethfer of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature announced. "Your planet now belongs to us. You will work for us until you die." Dr. Park felt her heart sink. She had always feared this day might come. Humans had been exploring space for decades, but they had never met hostile aliens before. Now they were face to face with creatures that saw them as nothing more than tools. "Your species shows promise. As workers," Kethfer continued, "you will mine the crystals beneath this world. You will work hard and without complaint. Those who refuse will be killed as examples to the others." Jake stepped forward, even though several alien guards pointed their weapons at him. "We are colonists, not slaves. We have rights under galactic law." Kethfer made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is no galactic law that protects your kind. You are weak and small, and few in number. You exist only because we allow it." The War Prime gestured to his soldiers, and they began separating the humans into groups. Men and women were put in different areas. Children were taken to a separate building. Jake watched helplessly as families were torn apart. "Please," called out Maria Santos, a mother of 2 young children, "don't take my babies." But the aliens ignored her cries. They moved with cold efficiency, treating the humans like livestock being sorted for slaughter. Within an hour, the entire colony had been reorganized according to alien plans. Dr. Park found herself in a group with other scientists and doctors. The aliens seemed to understand that some humans had special skills they wanted to preserve. She used this time to study their captors, noting everything she could about their technology and behavior. The alien weapons were clearly advanced, using some form of energy that she had never seen before. Their armor looked biological, as if it had grown rather than been manufactured. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to communicate without speaking, their heads turning toward each other in synchronized movements. Ryan Cole was put with the other engineers and mechanics. The aliens clearly planned to use human knowledge to improve their mining operations. As he waited with the others, Ryan studied the alien equipment. Their technology was impressive, but it was also different from human designs. Perhaps that difference could be used against them. Over the next few days, the aliens established their control over the colony. They brought in massive mining machines and began tearing up the landscape. The quantum crystals they sought were deep underground, requiring the humans to work in dangerous tunnels that the aliens cared nothing about making safe. Jake tried to maintain order among the colonists, but it was difficult. People were scared and angry. Some wanted to fight, even though they had no weapons. Others just wanted to survive. The pressure was breaking down the community that had taken years to build. The aliens worked the humans 12 hours a day in the mines. The crystal dust made people sick, and the tunnels were always on the verge of collapse. Within the first week, 5 people had died in accidents. The aliens simply removed the bodies and ordered everyone back to work. Dr. Park began to understand the true horror of their situation. The aliens were not just mining crystals, they were changing the planet itself. The crystals powered machines that altered the atmosphere, making it more suitable for Zephyrian life and slowly poisonous to humans. "They're not planning to keep us alive," she whispered to Jake during one of their brief rest periods. "This is slow murder." But Jake had not given up hope. Before the aliens arrived, the colony had sent a distress signal toward Earth. It would take months to reach home, but help might still come. The question was whether any of them would still be alive when it arrived. Ryan Cole had been thinking about the same thing. Using parts from broken mining equipment, he had begun building a transmitter in secret. If he could boost the signal strong enough, he might be able to contact any human ships that came looking for them. The work was dangerous. If the aliens caught him, they would kill him immediately. But Ryan knew that their only hope was to let Earth know what had happened to them. He worked at night, in the abandoned storage areas where the aliens rarely went. After 2 weeks of careful work, Ryan had completed his transmitter. It was crude and weak, but it might be enough. He waited for the right moment when the alien guards changed shifts and there was a brief gap in their surveillance. The message he sent was simple and direct. Colony overrun. Zephyrian Empire. Terraforming in progress. Military response required. We're still fighting. Ryan had no way of knowing if anyone would receive his message. Earth was 47 light years away, and human technology was still limited. But he had done what he could. Now all they could do was survive and wait. The aliens continued their work, unaware that their victims had found a way to call for help. War Prime Kefver was confident that no human force could challenge the Zephyrian Empire. His species had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved countless other races. What Kefver did not know was that humanity had learned hard lessons from history. They had prepared for this day, building ships and training soldiers for a war they hoped would never come. The distress signal from Kepler 442b had already reached Earth, and the response was on its way. The colonists continued to work and suffer, not knowing that their message had been received. They did not know that Admiral Kate Sullivan was already leading a fleet toward their world. They did not know that humanity's first contact with hostile aliens would also be their last. The trap had been set, but the aliens had no idea who the real prey would be. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrians took the colony. The mining camp looked nothing like the peaceful settlement it had once been. Alien machines covered the landscape, digging deeper into the planet's surface every day. The air itself had changed, becoming thinner and harder to breathe. Jake Morrison stood at the entrance to Mine Shaft 7, watching the latest group of workers disappear into the darkness below. His face was thinner now, marked by months of poor food and constant worry. Of the 312 colonists who had been captured, only 238 remained alive. The deaths had not been quick or easy. Some workers had died in tunnel collapses when the aliens refused to provide proper safety equipment. Others had succumbed to the crystal dust that filled their lungs after long days in the mines. A few had simply given up, their hearts stopping during sleep, as if they could no longer bear to wake up in this nightmare. Dr. Lisa Park walked up to Jake, carrying her medical kit. She had become the colony's doctor by necessity, treating injuries and illnesses with whatever supplies she could find. The aliens provided basic medical care, but only enough to keep the humans working. How many today? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 3 more cases of crystal lung, Lisa replied quietly. The dust is getting worse as we go deeper. People can't keep breathing this stuff without proper masks. Jake nodded grimly. He had tried to negotiate with the alien guards for better equipment, but they had no interest in human complaints. To them, the colonists were just tools that could be replaced if they broke. The aliens had divided the humans into work groups. The strongest went into the mines to extract crystals. The skilled workers maintained the alien machines. The women and older people processed the crystals in the surface facilities. Even the children had jobs, carrying water and food to the work sites. Ryan Cole emerged from the mechanical bay, oil stains covering his clothes. The young engineer had become invaluable to the aliens because he could fix their machines when they broke down. This gave him access to alien technology that others never saw. Any luck with the transmitter? Jake asked in a low voice. Ryan shook his head. The signal's too weak. I can send a message, but I don't know if it's reaching anyone. The alien interference is getting stronger every day. Over the past months, Ryan had improved his secret transmitter several times. He had learned to scavenge parts from broken equipment and hide them in places the aliens never checked. But each upgrade brought new challenges. The aliens had noticed that some of their equipment was disappearing. They had increased security around the storage areas and started random searches of the human quarters. Ryan had to be more careful than ever, moving parts one at a time and working only during the brief periods when the guards changed shifts. Dr. Park had made a disturbing discovery in her observations of the alien operations. The crystals they were mining were not just valuable resources. They were being used to power massive atmospheric processors that were slowly changing the planet's environment. The oxygen levels are dropping, she explained to Jake and Ryan during one of their secret meetings. At the same time, they're increasing the methane and sulfur compounds in the air. They're making the planet unlivable for us. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground air. How long do we have? At the current rate, maybe 2 years before the atmosphere becomes completely toxic to humans, Lisa said. But people are already getting sick from the changes. We won't last nearly that long. The 3 of them sat in silence, absorbing this information. The aliens were not just using them as slave labor. They were committing slow genocide, killing the humans while making the planet suitable for their own kind. We have to get word to Earth, Jake said finally. Even if rescue comes too late for us, people need to know what these aliens really are. Ryan had been thinking the same thing. He had been working on a new plan, something more dangerous than anything he had tried before. The aliens had a powerful communication array near their main base, used to contact their fleet in orbit. If he could access it, even for a few minutes, he might be able to send a signal strong enough to reach human space. It's suicide, Lisa said when Ryan explained his idea. The alien base is heavily guarded. You'd never get close to their communication center. But Ryan had been studying the alien patrol patterns for months. There was a 40-minute window during shift changes when the guards moved between positions. If he timed it perfectly, he might be able to reach the communication array and send a message before being caught. Jake wanted to go with him, but Ryan refused. If we both get caught, who's going to keep the others organized? You're the leader here. These people need you. Preparations for the mission took weeks. Ryan had to memorize the alien base layout, create a distraction to draw attention away from the communication center, and prepare a message that could be transmitted quickly. Every detail had to be perfect because he would only get one chance. The aliens had noticed changes in the human prisoners over the past months. What they interpreted as acceptance of their situation was actually careful organization. Jake had created a network of trusted people who could pass information and coordinate activities without attracting attention. Maria Santos, who had lost her children to alien experiments, now worked in the crystal processing facility. She had learned to recognize which crystals powered different types of alien equipment. This knowledge would be crucial for Ryan's mission. Lieutenant Sam Foster, a former military communications officer, had been teaching other colonists how to operate alien equipment they encountered in their work. The aliens saw this as helpful. Cooperation, not realizing they were training potential saboteurs. The night chosen for the mission was darker than usual, with both of the planet's moons hidden behind clouds. Ryan made his way carefully through the alien base, using maintenance tunnels that Maria had discovered during her work shifts. The alien communication center was a massive structure covered in crystalline formations that pulsed with internal light. Ryan had to disable several security sensors to reach the main console, using techniques that Sam had taught him. His hands shook as he connected his modified transmitter to the alien system. The power flowing through the equipment was enormous, far beyond anything he had worked with before. One mistake could electrocute him or trigger alarms that would bring every guard in the base running. The message he sent was longer than his first attempt, containing everything they had learned about the Zephyrian plans. He included details about the atmospheric changes, the mining operations, and the alien military presence. Most importantly, he warned Earth that this was not just a rescue situation, but an act of war. As Ryan finished the transmission, he heard footsteps approaching. The alien guards had discovered his presence. He quickly disconnected his equipment and tried to escape through the maintenance tunnels, but it was too late. The aliens who caught him were not the usual guards, but members of the military caste, larger and more dangerous than the workers the humans usually encountered. They dragged Ryan to the central plaza, where all the colonists could see what happened to those who disobeyed. War Prime Keffer stood over the captured human, his crystal shell reflecting the harsh lights of the alien base. "You thought you could contact your home world," he said through his translator device, "but your people are weak and far away. No one is coming to save you." Ryan looked up at the alien leader, his face bloody but defiant. "You're wrong," he said. "They're already on their way." Keffer struck Ryan with one of his armored limbs, sending the young engineer sprawling. "Your species will learn the price of defiance." What the War Prime did not know was that Ryan's message had indeed reached Earth. Even now, Admiral Kate Sullivan was studying the transmission aboard her flagship, preparing to lead humanity's first interstellar military fleet into battle. The signal had been received, and the response was coming. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Ed's Vengeance, her eyes fixed on the star charts displayed on the main screen. The ship was massive, larger than any vessel humanity had ever built before. Its hull was dark gray, covered with weapons and armor that made it look like a predator swimming through space. Around the Vengeance, 18 other ships moved in perfect formation. There were destroyers with sleek hulls designed for speed and firepower. Heavy cruisers bristled with missile launchers and energy weapons. Support ships carried the supplies and equipment needed for a long campaign far from Earth. This was the Earth Defense Fleet, humanity's answer to the hostile galaxy they had discovered. For decades, Human leaders had wondered what they would do if they encountered aggressive aliens. Now they knew. "Admiral, we have another transmission from the Kepler system," reported Communications Officer Tony Rodriguez from his station. His voice was tense with controlled anger. "The colonists are still alive, but conditions are getting worse." Kate nodded, her face showing no emotion. She had read every report from the colony, studied every piece of information they had about the Zephyrian Empire. What she had learned made her stomach turn with rage, but she kept that rage cold and focused. Captain Ben Hayes approached the Admiral's chair, carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence analysis. Ben was Kate's oldest friend and most trusted advisor, a man who had fought beside her in the conflicts that led to the creation of the defense fleet. "The aliens have 23 ships in the Kepler system," Ben reported. "All of them are larger than our vessels, and their technology appears more advanced in some areas. They're expecting us to run or surrender when we see their fleet." Kate smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They don't understand humans very well, do they?" The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since they first reached the stars. Earth's leaders knew that space was dangerous, that hostile aliens might exist, and that humanity needed to be ready to defend itself. The defense fleet was the result of 30 years of planning and preparation. Every ship in the fleet was built for war. Their hulls were reinforced with the strongest materials human science could produce. Their weapons were designed to punch through any armor or shield that might protect an enemy vessel. Most importantly, their crews were trained to fight with a determination that most alien species could not match. Navigator Chris Turner called out from the station, "Admiral, we'll reach the edge of the Kepler system in 6 hours at current speed." Kate turned to address her bridge crew. These men and women had volunteered for a mission that might end in their deaths. They knew they were facing an alien empire that had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had come anyway because humans were in danger. "Signal all ships," Kate ordered. "Prepare for combat operations. We go in fast and we hit them hard. No warnings, no negotiations. They enslaved our people and planned to kill them. Today they learn why that was the biggest mistake they ever made." Across the fleet, crews rushed to battle stations. Weapons were powered up and targeted. Armor plates were sealed and emergency systems activated. In the fighter bays, pilots climbed into their small but deadly craft, ready to launch at the first sign of enemy contact. The human ships were smaller than the Zephyrian vessels, but they had advantages the aliens could not imagine. Human engineering focused on speed, maneuverability, and concentrated firepower. Where alien ships were built like floating fortresses, human ships were built like guided missiles. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Wilson stood in the fighter bay of the cruiser EDS Harbinger, watching her pilots prepare for launch. She was the youngest squadron leader in the fleet, but her skills in combat simulation had earned her the respect of veterans twice her age. "Remember what we learned in training," Sarah told her pilots. "The alien ships are big and slow. They expect enemies to stand still and trade shots like battleships. We're going to move fast, hit their weak points, and get out before they can respond." The pilots nodded, their faces serious behind their helmet visors. They had trained for years for this moment, but training was different from real combat. Soon they would find out if human tactics could overcome alien technology. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Kate received reports from all 19 ships in her fleet. Every vessel was ready for battle, their crews eager to rescue the colonists and punish the aliens who had taken them. "Admiral," called Sensor Officer Danny Park from his station, "I'm detecting the alien fleet. They're moving to intercept us." At the edge of the system, Kate studied the tactical display, noting the positions and movements of the enemy ships. The Zephyrians were arranging themselves in a traditional battle formation, as if they expected a conventional fleet engagement. They had no idea what kind of enemy they were facing. "They think this is a rescue mission," Ben observed, studying. The alien movements. They expect us to try to negotiate or run when we see how outnumbered we are. Kate's smile grew wider and more dangerous. Signal the fleet. All ships are to engage enemy vessels on sight. No prisoners, no mercy. These aliens wanted a war, and now they have one. The human fleet continued its approach to the Kepler system, moving at maximum speed toward the waiting alien ships. What the Zephyrians saw on their sensors confused them. The human vessels were much smaller than expected, and they were advancing directly toward the alien fleet instead of trying to avoid contact. War Prime Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the approaching human ships with growing puzzlement. His tactical officers assured him that victory was certain, but something felt wrong about the human formation and behavior. Perhaps they are coming to surrender, suggested his communications officer. Their ships are too small to pose any real threat to our fleet. But Kethver had spent months studying the human colonists, and he had learned that these creatures did not surrender easily. Even when facing certain death, they continued to resist and fight. It was an admirable quality in a slave species, but troublesome in an enemy. Prepare all weapons, Kethver ordered. I want those ships disabled and captured. We need to interrogate their crews to learn the location of the human homeworld. The two fleets approached each other across the empty space between planets, each confident in their own superiority. The Zephyrians expected to capture or destroy the small human force within minutes. The humans expected to demonstrate why threatening their people was a fatal mistake. Kate watched the countdown timer on her tactical display, waiting for the moment when her ships would enter weapons range. She thought about the colonists who had suffered for months under alien rule, about the people who had died in the mines, about the children who had been separated from their parents. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan, she announced over the fleet communication system. You know what those aliens did to our people. You know what they plan to do to Earth if we let them. Today we show the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Today we show them the price of threatening us. The bridge crew of the Vengeance could hear similar announcements from the other ships in the fleet. Every captain was reminding their crews why they were here, why this battle mattered, why they could not afford to lose. Weapons range in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Kate gripped the arms of her command chair, feeling the weight of command and the responsibility for every life under her care. In a few minutes, the battle would begin, and the galaxy would learn what happened when humanity went to war. All ships prepare to engage. The first shot of the battle came from the Zephyrian flagship. War Prime Kethver had ordered his gunners to fire a warning blast across the bow of the lead human ship, expecting the smaller vessels to stop and surrender. Instead, the human fleet accelerated toward the alien formation. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the energy beam pass harmlessly in front of her ship and smiled coldly. All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten human lives. The EDS Vengeance opened fire with its main railgun, a massive weapon that accelerated a tungsten projectile to 15% of light speed. The shot crossed the distance between fleets in seconds and struck the Zephyrian flagship's forward shield. The alien shield held for exactly 3 milliseconds before the kinetic projectile punched through it like paper. The tungsten rod continued through the ship's hull, tearing a hole from bow to stern and venting atmosphere and crew into space. War Prime Kethver felt his ship shudder under the impact. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel as his crew rushed to contain the damage. He had never seen a weapon that could penetrate Zephyrian shields so easily. Return fire, he ordered, but his gunners were already working to repair damaged systems. The battle that followed would be remembered differently by the two sides. The aliens would call it the Great Disaster, a catastrophic defeat that shattered their confidence. Humans would remember it as the liberation of Kepler, The day they announced their arrival as a military power. Captain Lavra Mitchell commanded the destroyer EDS Retribution, the fastest ship in the human fleet. She dove her vessel straight into the heart of the alien formation, her guns blazing as she wove between the massive enemy ships. "Target their weapon systems," Lavra ordered her gunners. "Cut them apart piece by piece." The Retribution's railguns fired in sequence, each shot precisely aimed at critical components on the alien vessels. The Zephyrians had built their ships to withstand energy weapons and explosive missiles, but no one had prepared them for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. One by one, the alien ships lost their weapons, their engines, their life support systems. The Zephyrians inside tried to return fire, but their massive vessels could not turn fast enough to track the human ships dancing around them. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Wilson launched from the cruiser AD Harbinger with her fighter squadron. 12 small craft that moved like angry wasps around the alien fleet. The fighters carried nuclear missiles, each one capable of destroying a ship much larger than themselves. "Blue Squadron, target the engine sections," Sarah ordered over the radio. "Cripple them so they can't run." The fighters split into groups, each attacking a different alien vessel. Their missiles struck with pinpoint accuracy, guided by targeting systems that could track objects moving at incredible speeds. The alien ships began to drift helplessly as their engines died. Commander Pete Walsh brought his cruiser AD Harbinger into the battle, flanked by 2 destroyers. His ships moved in perfect coordination, their weapons targeting the same alien vessel simultaneously. The concentrated firepower overwhelmed the enemy ship's defenses, reducing it to wreckage in seconds. "Next target," Pete ordered calmly, as if he were conducting a training exercise instead of a battle that would determine the fate of 2 species. "War Prime." Kethver watched in horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. Their ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons struck with devastating power, and their tactics were completely alien to Zephyrian understanding. "Order all ships to withdraw," he commanded, but half his fleet was already dead or dying. The human ships pursued the retreating aliens with ruthless efficiency. Admiral Sullivan had given clear orders. No enemy vessel was to escape. The galaxy needed to see what happened when humans went to war. Captain Ben Hayes commanded the heavy cruiser AD Dominion, focusing his fire on the largest alien ships. His vessel carried the most powerful weapons in the fleet after the Vengeance, and he used them to devastating effect. "Admiral, the alien flagship is trying to escape," Ben reported over the communication system. "Negative," Kate replied. "I want that ship intact. We need to question its commander." The Vengeance moved to intercept the fleeing flagship. It's massive, bulk cutting off the alien ship's escape route. The railgun fired again, this time targeting the engines instead of the hull. The Zephyrian ship went dark and began to drift. Down on the planet's surface, Jake Morrison and the surviving colonists watched the battle through the makeshift scanner that Dr. Lisa Park had built. The flashes of light in the sky told them that something extraordinary was happening. "The human ships aren't running," Lisa reported, her voice filled with amazement. "They're winning." Ryan Cole, bruised and battered from his capture, but still alive, managed a weak smile. "I told you they were coming." The battle in space continued for 3 hours, but the outcome was decided in the first 30 minutes. The human fleet moved through the alien formation like a scythe through wheat, cutting down everything in their path. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that thought differently, moved differently, and killed with a precision that bordered on artistry. Of the 23 ships in the alien fleet, 21 were completely destroyed. The flagship was disabled and captured. One small escort vessel managed to escape, fleeing toward the outer system with human fighters in pursuit. "Let it go," Admiral Sullivan ordered. I want survivors to tell the story. The space around Kepler 442b was filled with debris and wreckage, the remains of an alien fleet that had controlled 14 star systems. In less than 3 hours, humanity had announced its arrival as a galactic military power. Warprime HFY sat in his command chair, surrounded by the bodies of his crew and the wreckage of his ship. His crystal shell was cracked and leaking fluid, but he was still alive. The humans had been careful to disable his vessel without killing everyone aboard. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Fleet," came a voice over his ship's communication system. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." HFY activated his translator with a trembling limb. "I am Warprime HFY of the Zephyrian Empire. You cannot defeat us. We control 14 systems, our fleet's number in the thousands." There was a pause before the human admiral replied. "Warprime, you seem to misunderstand the situation. We didn't come here to fight your empire. We came here to end it." The words sent a chill through HFY's damaged body. These humans were not the weak, primitive creatures he had expected. They were predators, and they had been hunting his kind from the moment they received the distress signal. "Your empire has a choice," Sullivan continued. "Release all human prisoners, withdraw from human space, and never threaten our people again, or watch your civilization burn." HFY tried to process this ultimatum. The Zephyrian Empire had existed for over 1,000 years, had conquered dozens of worlds, had enslaved hundreds of species. How could these newcomers threaten everything his people had built? "You are few," he said weakly. "Your ships are small. How can you challenge an empire?" "By doing exactly what we just did," came the reply. "Over and over again, to every fleet. You send against us until you learn to leave us alone." The surviving alien commander looked around at the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. In a few hours, humanity had destroyed forces that had taken centuries to build. If they could do this to his fleet, what could they do to his empire? The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. The age of human expansion had begun. The transport beam from the EDS Vengeance deposited Admiral Kate Sullivan and her marine escort directly into the mining complex on Kepler 442b. The air was thick with crystal dust and the smell of alien machinery, but Kate barely noticed. Her attention was focused on the scene before her. Warprime HFY knelt in the center of the complex, his crystal shell cracked and leaking blue fluid. Around him, 37 surviving Zephyrian soldiers had laid down their weapons and submitted to human marines. The aliens who had seemed so powerful and terrifying just hours ago now looked broken and defeated. Jake Morrison stepped forward from the group of freed colonists. He was thinner than he had been 6 months ago, his clothes dirty and torn, but his eyes burned with determination. Behind him stood the survivors of the colony, 223 people who had endured months of slavery and abuse. "Admiral Sullivan," Jake said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "we never stopped believing you would come." Kate nodded, studying the faces of the colonists. She could see the marks that captivity had left on them, the hollow cheeks and haunted eyes of people who had suffered too much. But she could also see something else, the unbroken spirit that had kept them alive. "You did well to survive," Kate told them. "Your signals reached us, and your information made this victory possible." Dr. Lisa Park approached carrying a data pad filled with months of careful observations. "Admiral, we documented everything. Their technology, their methods, their plans for the planet. The Zephyrians weren't just mining here. They were terraforming the world to make it uninhabitable for humans." Kate accepted the data pad and scanned its contents. The information would be invaluable for planning future operations against the Zephyrian Empire. But more than that, it was evidence of crimes that demanded justice. "Warprime HFY," Kate said, turning to address the alien commander. You stand accused of enslaving humans, murdering civilians, and planning genocide. Do you have anything to say? Kefver raised his damaged head, his translator crackling with static. You cannot judge us by your primitive laws. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have ruled the stars for 1,000 years. Kate's expression remained cold and professional. Your empire enslaved and murdered our people. That makes you war criminals. Your 1,000 years of rule are over. The alien commander tried to stand but collapsed back to his knees. You are only one fleet. The Empire has hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors. When word of this reaches the core worlds, they will send forces that will darken your skies. Let them come, Kate replied. We'll be waiting. Marine Colonel Alex Barnes stepped forward with restraints designed for alien physiology. The Zephyrian. Prisoners would be taken back to Earth for trial and interrogation. Their testimony would provide intelligence about alien, military capabilities, and the locations of other human prisoners. Ryan Cole sat on a piece of mining equipment, watching the aliens being processed. His face was bruised from his capture, but he was smiling. The transmitter he had built and the message he had risked his life to send had brought salvation to his people. Was it worth it? Asked Maria Santos, the mother who had lost her children. To alien experiments. Ryan looked at the human ships visible through the complex's damaged roof. Every bit of it. Over the following days, the Earth Defense Fleet worked to secure the Kepler system and evacuate the surviving colonists. Medical teams treated injuries and illnesses caused by months of forced labor. Engineers studied alien technology and mining equipment. Intelligence officers interrogated prisoners and gathered information about the Zephyrian Empire. Kate stood in the observation deck of the Vengeance, watching the evacuation ships prepare to depart for Earth. The colonists would go home as heroes, but their ordeal had changed them forever. Some would recover and return to normal lives. Others would join the defense fleet, their experiences driving them to protect other humans from the same fate. Captain Ben Hayes joined Kate at the observation window. The prisoners are talking, he reported. The Zephyrian Empire controls 14 star systems, but their military is spread thin. Most of their ships are old designs, built for fighting primitive civilizations. Kate nodded. The battle at Kepler had proven that human technology and tactics were superior to alien methods, but numbers could still matter in a prolonged war. The Empire would eventually respond with everything they had. Signal Earth Command, Kate ordered. Tell them we need more ships, more crews, and more weapons. The Zephyrians started this war, but we're going to finish it. News of the Kepler victory spread quickly through human space. The colonies that had lived in fear of alien contact now celebrated humanity's first military triumph among the stars. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers wanting to join the defense fleet. Shipyards worked around the clock to build new vessels, but the news also spread beyond human space. Other alien civilizations that had suffered under Zephyrian rule watched with amazement as the newest species in the galaxy destroyed one of the oldest empires. Some began to hope that their own freedom might be possible. The Zephyrian Empire's response came 3 months later. A massive fleet of over 200 ships arrived at the edge of human space, led by Emperor Zethmar himself. The aliens expected to find a small, frightened civilization begging for mercy. Instead, they found Admiral Kate Sullivan waiting with 50 human ships and a simple message: "You have entered human space without permission. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed." The battle that followed was even more one-sided than the fight at Kepler. Human tactics and technology proved devastating against alien formations that had not changed in centuries. The Imperial fleet was annihilated in less than 6 hours, with Emperor Zethmar himself captured alive. Within a year, the Zephyrian Empire ceased to exist. Human fleets appeared in system after system, liberating enslaved populations and destroying alien military bases. The species that had ruled through fear and conquest found themselves helpless against an enemy that fought with cold precision and relentless determination. Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he could not forget the lessons learned. On Kepler 442b, he joined the colonial administration, working to establish new settlements that could defend themselves against hostile aliens. His experience as a prisoner had taught him that humanity could never again afford to be unprepared. Dr. Lisa Park used her medical skills to treat other human prisoners rescued from alien worlds. She also studied alien biology, developing better ways to fight species that might threaten humanity in the future. Her work saved thousands of lives and advanced human understanding of galactic biology. Ryan Cole became an engineer for the Defense Fleet, designing new weapons and communication systems based on captured alien technology. His courage in sending the message from Kepler had saved not just his fellow colonists, but potentially all of humanity. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about humans. They were not the peaceful explorers that many species had assumed. When their people were threatened, humans became something far more dangerous. They became warriors with the patience to plan, the skill to execute, and the determination never to give up. Other alien civilizations took note of humanity's emergence. As a military power, some offered friendship and alliance. Others chose to avoid human space entirely. A few made the same mistake as the Zephyrians and found themselves facing the same devastating consequences. The stars belonged to many species, but they all understood the new reality. Humans protected their own with a ferocity that few could match and none wanted to test. The galaxy was a safer place for the innocent and a far more dangerous one for those who preyed upon the weak. Peace came through strength, and humanity had proven they possessed both in abundance.